Yeah, it's just a cool, like, random thing. Oh, here we go. What is up, everybody? Welcome to OTBN365. This is a special event here. We're gonna do the NBA conference finals, and I've got a guest on, my first guest for the OTBN 365. I got Mash from Hops Geeks News, who I'll just tell you straight up, he's a Celtics fan. He's pumped, but he's a great sports podcaster too, along with one of the best. I don't know, Mash, how we want to describe it. The Geek multiverse podcasters.
Oh man,
Where
yeah,
where
like
where are we
we're
even
all
at now?
over the place.
Where
We're all over the place, man.
where are us like sports guys slash comic book guys? Like
We
we
used to be
really
an
found it.
anomaly.
We have really found this like utopia right now. That's just I'm really thriving in it, and you're one of the best in the business. So before we get started here, everybody go to Hops Geeks News, subscribe, like, comment, interact. Mash is honestly one of the best Twitter
Oh,
podcasters in the
thank
business
you.
too. He's active. He's interactive. He's responsive, and him and Hoppy Mama, your show is just one of the best in the business for a weekly ingestion of what you watch, what's going on, breakdowns, but you also have you don't sugarcoat it, if I can put it that way. So everybody go subscribe and listen to Mash's show. It's really great. And also, again, one of the best sports minds on Twitter. It's you're the best of both worlds, man. I'm so happy to have you on, and we finally got this done. The backstory is that me
Yes,
and Mash have been trying to get a show together for
we've been
six
trying to do
months.
this for so long, man.
I don't know. It's always either Mother Nature or just circumstances, but finally we got this together. And of all things, we're talking about the NBA. Two NFL
Oh
guys talking
yes.
about the NBA.
Well, as soon as the buzzers, everything hit triple zeros yesterday. I hit you up and I was like, all right, when's the conference finals preview? Because I got some shit to talk finally. After I kept hearing like we sitting there in December, I was like, ooh, things aren't looking good. And now here we are.
No, Boston's had a great 3 or 4 months of basketball. And I had the same thing with Dan Felton. He's a reoccurring partner of mine that we do NFL shows. Well, he's a Rams fan, so it became
Oh,
it became very delicate because I would text Dan and I'd be like, "Hey, man, I don't want to say anything, but maybe I didn't want to jinx it." And it was the same with you because like I had so many thoughts. I'm like, nope. That's one of the biggest game sevens in Celtics
oh
history coming
yeah.
up against one of a truly great team. I'm like,
Defending champs.
yeah, it's great, and it's like being a defending champ does mean something. And we'll just start off there. Like, you guys beat the Bucks, the defending champs. I don't think anybody can argue. Like, I understand how, like, if you want to say Tatum's the second best player in the world, but I think we can all agree that Antetokounmpo right now is the best player
Oh yeah.
in the world at this point. So let's just talk about the series, man. The Buck series. Like, how did you live through it? How do you like? It's been a while since I'm a Bulls fan. It's been a while since we've had a series like that. Honestly,
It's honestly, man, it was a roller coaster. It was great basketball. If you're just like a pure basketball fan, you have a love for the sport. The defensive showings that they were putting out there, Celtics couldn't do anything for the first couple games. Like if they weren't hitting from the perimeter, they could not attack the paint whatsoever. And then vice versa, the Celtics did a great job. They're like, you know what, Giannis, we understand he's going to go out there, he's going to do his thing. But what they did really well that series was play defensively against the other guys
uh,
because Middleton being out really hurt them. It showed because
yeah.
outside of Connaughton, it was just Giannis who scored half their points in game 6 just
And
about.
and Connaughton really doesn't even come in the paint. Like, I'm not saying he
No,
had a
he's a
bad series, but he's not Middleton.
no, he's a three-point shooter. I mean, granted, the Celtics could have even wrapped this up potentially sooner if they didn't miss
Yeah.
the free throw opportunity and the rebound. So just you've heard about it, you saw it in the net series. Like the Celtics defense is what got them through this series more so than the net series, and it really was on display in both teams. I mean, it was just a well fought game. And then the officials for both sides, everybody was complaining. Everyone loves to complain about the officials, right?
Yeah,
But
that's all we hear. That's all we hear
that's
now.
all we're hearing. But there was some insane shots.
It,
Tatum was just really coming into his own in this series, I thought.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you officiate guys like Tatum and guys like Giannis.
You can't.
Because they can do things that it used to be, let's say 20 years ago, maybe one guy could do what they do. And now it's 12 guys can do what they do. Like, I don't know. And I did a show about this last week on 365. Like, I don't know how you officiate, guys that, I mean, there was a shot that Tatum made and he's almost laying on the ground. He throws it up and he goes in just like a casual.
Yeah, he was falling. He tossed it up like left-handed and it went in. I was like, how? How?
Right.
It just, some of his shots didn't make sense. And vice versa. It's just like, how you can't defend. It's hard to even defend that. You just have to limit these points because you're right. If you're talking, if we're looking at like the 2001 NBA Finals, I believe that was when you had Allen Iverson carrying a 76ers team, and then you had Kobe and Shaq. But okay, you really just have to worry about one of these guys, two of these guys. Now it's, you see these super teams, you see these big threes. You got really athletic, like Anthony Davis pulling up for threes. That wouldn't have happened 20 years ago.
No, it's and that's what both these teams represented. Like, you don't even, well, we look at the other side of it. We'll briefly talk about the Western Conference side, but you look at the traditional point guard like Chris Paul.
Oh yeah.
He essentially got buried in because of athleticism and height and all that. He really became irrelevant. And we'll touch on Kyle Lowry here in a minute, and I fear the same thing for him. But overall, it was a great series. And you're right, though. Like, you're not speaking out of turn. Boston could have easily won this series in 6 games or 5 games. It took everything Milwaukee had to keep it a series, but absolutely the right team won.
I'm going to say this too. I think if Milwaukee didn't have Bud as their coach, this would have been a lot closer in the end. I think that Milwaukee could have pulled it out because we got one thing he doesn't do is adjust very, very well. And this has been a criticism of his for years. I think if they don't win that championship last year, he probably gets fired, in my opinion.
No, if Kevin Durant's toe's not on the line, like it was the Kevin Durant toe.
Exactly.
Like,
it saved him.
He's fired immediately. And Giannis, saved. It is hard to, that's funny because you bring that up because we all forget about that because all we remember is that they're the champs. But there was a world to where they got outed in the second round and we don't even remember, what happened. That's a good point. And he did stick with it. Milwaukee just couldn't make a 3 and but everybody's like, oh, Milwaukee couldn't make a 3. And I'm like, yeah, but also Boston was like, go ahead, Milwaukee. Like, we'll go ahead.
They were daring him to shoot.
Yeah. And I remember the one time that this backfired on a team was when the Cavaliers, those LeBron Cavaliers teams did this, and everybody's like, go ahead and shoot. And every now and then they would just shoot the lights out of the building. And they're like, okay, we got buried. That was our bad. Milwaukee couldn't do that. They don't have that type of team, especially without Middleton, and the way Tatum's playing right now is unbelievable. So you're going to get the Miami Heat in the conference finals. The first question I had was, what's your biggest concern, going into that series against the Heat?
Well, I'll tell you straight off the bat. I mean, there's 2 guys that are going to make or break this series for the Heat. In my opinion, obviously Jimmy Butler is number 1. Like, if Jimmy Butler shows up and does Jimmy Butler things like he has been doing, like he did to the Sixers, they're in trouble. Number 2, Tyler Hero, 6th man of the year right there. He has the ability to shoot lights out. And if he gets hot, he's going to cause a lot of problems and stretch that defense.
So I got to ask though, the way I see it, and I know I get it. You want it to go one way, and I think you see it different than I do. As a casual observer, I get that. Yes, if you're going to tell me Tyler Hero is going to have the greatest shooting series, like a Danny Green did, against the Heat and stuff, that's fine. But what I see is, I think Boston has so many long defenders. I mean, even Horford can defend the perimeter. Smart. I guess what I'm thinking is, though, if Hero gets hot, Smart's just going to shut him down. Like Smart's going to be like, not today, or they may switch Tatum on him, and he's not
Right.
scoring against Tatum.
No.
I think they almost have to have two guys go lights out from the perimeter to push this Boston team. Full disclosure, I think Boston is heads and shoulders above the Miami Heat going into this series, but only because the Miami Heat, this 76ers team that the Miami Heat played was no test at all. It's
Oh,
honestly, it's one of the worst playoff teams I've ever seen when they got into the playoffs. So, and Jimmy Butler, like, okay, Jimmy Butler may average 40, but somebody else has got to score.
yeah. I don't see people like Kyle Lowry putting up massive
I
numbers.
think Kyle Lowry is a huge, is a huge disadvantage in this game. I don't know what like a not tall, not, he's not super physical right now, point guard.
No.
I don't know where his place is against this
I've
Celtics defense.
Well, I've never really seen how he fits in for the Heat particularly either. And
Nah.
one thing about the Celtics that they have really done an amazing job, all bias aside, is if you just watch them play defense, they are stifling. Absolutely.
Yes.
And I feel like the Heat are more akin to like the Nets. And I feel like they play a little bit similar. Granted, the Nets have a couple other, because you have someone who can really do things with the ball, and then you kind of have like that Kevin Durant, 3-point shooters. And you saw what happened. Like Celtics stifled them. Like you said,
Yeah. Yeah.
they have long bodies and they're athletic.
Yeah.
People like Al Horford's career resurgence this year, coming back to the Celtics at 35 years old. He's playing like he's 10 years younger. And they play such sound defensive basketball that it's really hard for me not to be like, this team is it. This is the special team right here. It just feels special.
It feels. I mean, I've already picked him on a couple podcasts I've been on. I said it after a couple games into the first series. I'm like, this Celtics team just feels like they're at their peak performance. Like they kind of figured it out. And then after the Milwaukee series, they're I don't care. Miami is not as good as Milwaukee, so the Celtics figured it out against them. If the Celtics don't come off of well, I'll just say an easy net series, they probably don't lose game one.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, we already just talked about, there's that world. So after saying that, what's your biggest concern about the Miami Heat? What is the thing that you're like, if the Miami Heat can possibly do this, we're in trouble?
I think it's going to come down to, I want to say rebounding, obviously, because there's a couple times where I was watching the Bucks Celtics series where the Celtics just weren't boxing guys out. They weren't doing a good job rebounding. And so
Well,
I
they
just,
lost the games they
yeah,
lost
they
were
lost the
because of
game.
rebounding.
Exactly. And so I feel like that's a key factor. Now, with that said, I think the Celtics are also benefiting coming off a 7-game series. Like you mentioned, they only played 4 games against the Nets. They had a little bit of a break. Now they just get a day. So they played Sunday. Now they're playing Tuesday. And now the Heat had some time off. I think that's going to play into, because yeah, everybody wants that extra rest. But for me personally, I want least amount of time between games played, because when you're feeling it, you're feeling it. And you want to keep that gel, everything going and going. And so my biggest thing, definitely rebounding, but I still feel like Celtics in 6 in this series, just because they're striking, they are coming together at the right time. Like we've mentioned, that's what it's all about. You come
Yeah.
together at the right time, and that's what it feels like.
Yeah, it does feel like that. And I understand the Heat are playing good, but again,
Yeah, they're first in the Eastern Conference. Like they're no slouches. I get it.
yeah. The comparison though between what they've done so far in the series or so far in the playoffs compared to what the Celtics have had to do, or the Bucks. If the Bucks would have won, I would say the same thing about the Bucks. It being like, no, they've just kind of the quote unquote battle tested. They fought through this, they fought through that. It just, I think Miami is going in game one tonight. When you guys were listening to this, it'll be tonight. Will look like the Celtics did in game one against the Bucks. Is like,
Yep.
oh, okay. The speed is faster. Everything is faster. We need to acclimate, and I think that's what's going to happen, because I think only having the 2 days off, the Celtics are going to carry that momentum and that
Exactly.
energy, and they're going to, if they attack that game
Well,
because I mean, Bam is not Giannis. Jimmy's going to give him fits. Like Jimmy's just
oh yeah,
like he's that
that's just
guy.
what superstars do.
That's just what Jimmy does. But I just think that overall, like when the guys come off the bench, they're going to be shocked by the energy that the Celtics
Well,
bring.
I'm glad you mentioned that because what the Celtics have that these other playoff teams don't necessarily have right now is when you have guys who come out there like Pritchard and knock down five
Jeez,
or six 3-pointers from your bench.
Richard was wound up
Like there is
Sunday night.
no reason, and it seems like the Celtics bench is even has become deep out of nowhere, and they're a bunch of ballers all of a sudden. Like Pritchard has no business hitting that many threes,
Yeah,
and that's kind of what I think Milwaukee or not Milwaukee, Miami is missing as well. Is yeah, they have six. I would say they have about three, four really good players, but their bench isn't necessarily deep. Like sure, you can say Tyler Hero 6-man, sure, but their bench outside of that isn't really deep. You look at the Celtics, you got Tice, you got Pritchard, like players like that who just come out there. And then of course you got the starters, Williams, you've got Al Horford, you've got Marcus Smart, who's been playing really well defensively. And
Marcus
then
Smart's had a really good series
he's had a
for a
hell of a
guy that came in
series.
injured.
Yeah.
Was injured.
And he's had a really great series. And these playoffs right here, this is when we start to find those superstars. This is when those superstar young players, and not for nothing, Tatum and Smart are 24 and 25 respectively. It's crazy.
It makes me so happy of all the young players in these playoffs that have done so good. It's awesome to see because the future of the NBA is in good hands. So you kind of touched on some of them. So I asked you this question, I sent it to you earlier so everybody knows. What is the key Celtic player outside of Smart, Tatum, and Brown? Who's the guy that you're like, this guy has a good series?
It's Al Horford.
It's Horford.
It's Al Horford, hands down. The things that he was doing, he was dunking over Giannis of all people this last year. Like I said, the man looks like he's 10 years younger. And
how's that dunk in game 5 not win the game?
I have no idea.
I was like, that's it. Al Horford just won the game. I still don't know how the Bucks won that
I don't get it. But I think firmly it's Al Horford. If he has a series like he's been having, he's going to give that defense a lot of fits on the Miami side. He just is. He's my X factor for this series.
I like Horford too because he's such a smart player and he's been around so long. He can guard the perimeter, or if they need him to, he can stay down low and he can give Bam if as long as he just makes, Bam is at best 60% of what Giannis is at best. So
exactly
if they can just make him make decisions and kick the ball out or whatever, that's all they got to do, to me, in my opinion, to nullify that. And Horford's the guy. Like Horford's the guy that can be like, all I got to do is keep this guy thinking. And if anything, as long as he neutralizes it,
meet him at the rim a couple times, and then that you're going to start getting in his head, and then he's going to start thinking about that as he comes to the rim, and it's going to start throwing shots off. He's going to want to kick the ball out. They're going to start forcing passes. That's what's gonna make or break this.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we'll just get into this because I want to have time to ask you a few questions about the Western Conference series. So when you see it lay out and you see the Celtics going to the NBA Finals, you'll be like, it's because they did this. What gets the Celtics to the NBA Finals?
It's going to be attacking the basket this series. I think, they were shooting really well, but they weren't necessarily attacking the basket. And that's just because, Milwaukee has dudes like Brook Lopez. Giannis is a big guy. They weren't necessarily able to do that. So I think what you're going to see this series is the Celtics attack and get the ball to the rim and draw those fouls. Just get that contact, get the ball down deep. Because once you start doing that, you're going to start collapsing the defense. And then that's going to open up your 3-point shooters right there. And then from there, if you're just knocking your threes down, that's going to be key. Attack the basket because everything else is going to open up, and that's something they're going to be able to do this series. I
think you're right. We all cried about that in the first game against the Bucks, and that was my first tweet out was like, the Celtics defense is great. They just shut down the nets. They need to switch over to offensive, and then they come out in game 2 and they're just slashing and they're going to the basket, and I'm like, okay, now we're in, and Tatum can just do.
He can hit him from 3 as we've seen, or he can pull up from the
He
base.
could
Like
do it anything.
he was doing just about everything.
He could do anything right now. What a great series he's had. Okay, so I'll ask you the opposite. If you see, I'll say the Heat win because I don't want to say the Celtics lose. If the Heat win the series, what do the how do you attack the Celtics team? What do the Heat do to get this series out?
They're gonna the perimeter shots easily. It's
They've
gonna be
got to
those
just
perimeter
get
shots.
crazy from 3, right?
If
That's
they
it.
hit on their 3, if they start getting really hot from the 3 and start hitting their jump shots, that's I think right there is what's going to, because at that point then you spread the floor. Now you're worried about guys shooting these threes, and you're gonna take that extra step out there, and that's gonna maybe leave a couple guys one on one down and deep, things like that.
I just don't know if I see a world where Tatum lets that happen. And I agree. I totally agree with you that that's the key. But then I think about in my mind, I'm like, I don't see Smart, Brown, and Tatum being like, oh, we don't know what to do with these guys on the
With
perimeter.
no,
Like, I
with
think they'll just go out and guard them.
with how good defensively this Celtics team is and how well coached they have been this year, especially the second half, I had such a hard time myself. It's insane. I don't see it either. But I also have in the back of my mind all the sports heartbreaks, right? I
Oh,
mean,
anything can happen.
anything could happen. It's
Yeah.
just anything could happen. So I don't want to get too overconfident, but I really, really like this matchup for the Celtics. This is, and this, they have a chance. If they beat the Heat, then they would have beaten the previous 3 teams who have eliminated them from the playoffs. And, you know, the Nets
Great
eliminate them,
stat.
the Bucks eliminate them, and the Heat had eliminated them. So
The revenge tour.
exactly. Then
revenge
that's something
tour.
so poetic about that.
If only they could play the Lakers in the finals, that would be perfect.
Oh my
That's
God.
what you're
That would-
saying.
yes,
That's
that
what
would
you're
be just
saying.
perfect right there.
So we'll get to it. You know, I feel like I know where you're leaning. What's your prediction for the Eastern Conference Finals? We'll take a few minutes for the West here in a minute.
I still think
Not that I think the West matters this year, but go ahead.
yeah. I'm
But I
with
know
you.
I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong.
I think the Celtics win it in 6. Honestly, it's going to be a great series, and I think Miami really is going to give them a couple scares. But I just think the Celtics, their defense, when they say defense wins championships, this is right here. We're going to see a clinic. I feel like we're going to see a great display of defense in this series.
I do too. My prediction is that the Celtics win in 6, but I don't think it's a nervous 6. I think it's like, okay. But I also think that Jimmy Butler continues his great run, but I just don't think the rest of the Heat, you know, live up to, you know, their end of the bargain.
Right.
Jimmy's on a tear, but there's just not enough. Jimmy's going to try to. He can only pick one person on the Celtics to guard.
Right. And we saw what happened I mean, we saw the Bucks only had one person really playing on offense for him, and look how that turned out. I mean,
there's just not enough. There's so many two-way players for the Celtics. What a modern basketball team.
Yeah.
So I reached out to a friend of ours. I reached out to the Hoppy Mama, and I said, you know what, Max is coming on the show tonight. You know, I wish I could add you on to any thoughts. And she just had a couple. First of all, she said Jimmy buckets! Exclamation mark. Then she said, apparently you guys had a bet on the Celtics versus Heat in 2020, and
we did.
That did not go your way.
No, it did not.
And then she said, well, I don't know, but the Heat didn't need extra games to go to the finals.
That's that confident. You know, that's, I will say, she failed to kind of look up. So while Lauren wanted to talk some shit, I did happen to look up. So November 4th, Boston, Miami played. Boston won by 20. January 31st, Boston, Miami played. Boston won by 30. March 30th, they played, and Miami won by 8. So anything could happen, but
that's fair.
But you know, I understand Miami. They have a bunch of fans that they have to pump their fans in, because what does Miami get up for? Nothing really. So
no, they'll be there. They'll be there by halftime.
See, she had to go to Miami because the Orlando Magic are so pathetic. So
that's perfect. So just so anybody doesn't know, Lauren and is Mash's partner on Hopsky News, and They are legit. They're legit Celtics versus Miami Heat fans,
Yes.
but they also do a great show. So
I'll have
I had
to
to reach out and get her thoughts. I had
I'm
to
gonna
reach
have
out
to
and get her
see if we're
thoughts.
gonna do any sort of bet this year.
You
I'll
guys
keep you posted. I
absolutely
will
have
keep you
to.
posted.
You know I'm listening. You know I've listened if nothing else. I know you're in Star Wars month right now,
Yes.
which is fantastic. All the work that you guys are doing out there are great. So let's translate over real quick. Translate was not the right word. Y'all just gonna have to get past that.
We're
Um,
transitioning.
transition to the Western Conference Finals. It could, because I know you're an overall sports fan. You're not
Oh
just
yeah.
solely focused
I
on the
just love the
Celtics.
game.
How do you feel about this Western Conference Finals? You
Man,
got
this is a
Dallas
hard
and
one.
Golden State, two opposite teams. Luka's on a tear right
Man.
now. Just what's your gut feeling about this finals?
Luca scares me. He has that
Lucas,
look in his
Lucas,
eyes. Like, oh my
Luka,
God.
he's got a look in his eyes like he doesn't care.
He
Like he
after
just
every
doesn't care.
basket yesterday, the dude is just smiling like the Joker. And I'm just like, this is kind of frightening. Like, he's the last person I want to play in the playoffs, to be honest with you, just because Luca can do Luca things. The Mavericks low key have a really good defense too that was severely slept on.
They played really good.
They've
Really good.
they've turned it around the second half of the season as well. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people weren't looking at the entire season for that team, and they've
So
done a really good job.
yeah, so they said a stat yesterday during the game. I believe they said maybe since Christmas or sometime in January, the only team that had more wins since then than the Mavericks were the Suns. Like the
Mhm.
Mavericks have been on a tear for months. This isn't a
This
fluke.
isn't new. No, like
Mm.
they have been that team for a while now. They've really turned things
But I
around.
don't know what you do with a guy that's making casual step back threes like he like the only person that's even ever been close to the range that this guy has is LeBron, and this guy's a better outside shooter than LeBron.
Oh,
LeBron was, a
yes.
better passer and all that, but as far as like a threat from half court, I mean, you got Steph Curry and you got Doncic, you got LeBron. Like these guys are a threat as soon as they cross half court. It's unbelievable. And then you got the Golden State, who Draymond is basically
Oh,
just
yeah.
giving up on playing offense.
He really
Steph's
this year more so, yeah, you
yeah,
really see
yeah.
it.
Steph's age, of course, Poole's playing great. Clay is not. Clay is not who Clay was. In my mind, I just think Dallas is just at a different point. You
I feel
know,
like that game 7 demolishing I can't even call it a victory. It was an
oh my
absolute just
gosh,
murder. That the massacre in Phoenix,
massacre is a better word
I
for it.
think that's gonna carry the Mavericks more so, and that's gonna get I think they're gonna win the series. I'll be upfront with you. I
I
that's
do
not to
too.
that's not to talk down about the things that Steph Curry can do, that Klay Thompson could do, that Poole can do, Draymond. But something about that team this year has just felt like they haven't hit that gear that they had been hitting previously.
Yeah, no, it's just they're wearing down. And let's just put it, we just watched a couple of weeks ago. Memphis beat the brakes
Oh
off
my
of them,
god,
and Dal
absolutely.
and without John Morant, and Dallas is better than that. Dallas is at like healthy, peak performance. It's just a matchup nightmare for Dallas. It's all going to be whether if Brunson can just hold his own against the Golden State guards, then I think Dallas easily wins this series. And when I say easily,
Yeah.
I'm probably talking 6 games.
Oh
But
yeah, I think
if
it goes
Brunson can hold his own against Steph, but I can imagine, like, I can't imagine what it's like to be a young point guard and you walk in there and it's Steph Curry on the other side. You're like,
it's intimidating.
well,
Yeah.
this is weird. Like, so I'm not rolling Golden State out. I just, without Draymond being able to score and Clay being slow, the way Dinwiddie's playing right now, I got Dallas Celtics finals
That's
as
yeah,
we speak.
same. I actually think this Mav series goes 7. I have a feeling it'll go 7, but I think the Mavericks are gonna get it done. I it just feels like
It
they're a
just
team
feels
with
like it.
destiny
And
at this point.
by the way, Doncic again is, I think he's 23 also.
Yeah, he's
Like,
only 23.
we
That's
are
even crazier.
we are in a different world of NBA basketball. So Max, I thought of one thing. I wanted to completely blindside you with a question. You guys, again, over at Hops Geeks News, you guys do great content over there. So I had a question. If you had to choose right now, would you have Jason Tatum as a Celtic or Robert Pattinson as the Batman?
Hmm. Dang, that's tough because I loved Robert Pattinson
I
as
know you
Batman.
did.
Man, that is tough. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead Jason Tatum right now. Just
Yes.
just because we've gotten a lot of great iterations of Batman.
You
We
know that
really
there's
have.
another option.
And there's always somebody else willing to step up in there. But Jason Tatum and again, Boston sports fans, we're so blessed, but also
Yes.
I haven't seen a Celtics championship since I was 18.
Oh
So
man.
kind of seeing them raise that trophy and just the things that he's done for this city. And he
But
really
this
seems
is
he's just a good dude, it
this is
seems like.
no, he's the perfect basketball player. I love him and Deuce out there warming up before
Oh,
the games.
yeah.
I love the way he plays.
They're
I
just
love
having fun.
as someone that's I mean seriously, I'll be honest. I've hated the Boston Celtics my entire lifetime. That's all I remember, and I love this team. Like I just love them
They're
so much. Not that I never respected them, but I've just always hated them. But this team, I just
Well,
love
something's
them.
weird this year. I mean, not even weird, but you're just seeing like I think this is more of a trend now across sports as a whole. But a lot of these teams are just having fun. You can just see a lot of these guys are
Yeah,
just out there having
and
fun,
it
which
doesn't have to be a negative.
no, not at all. And I get like the social media, TikTok. We've seen Juju get flamed on TikTok, but
Mhm.
it's just like these guys are just having fun. It's a
Yeah,
different era now, right? You don't have to be this cold, heartless kind of person. Like
right.
they're enjoying the game. They're getting paid to play basketball, football, hockey, whatever it is, and they're just having fun with it. And that's what you're kind of seeing. But this Celtics team, they just the way they've come together. If Al Horford
Love the
doesn't
coach.
come here, that probably wouldn't happen. I think this has
Ooh,
happened because of Al Horford. I for some reason that having that veteran figure come in
I
there
agree.
and pull them all together, that's what turned it around.
Yeah, I remember saying a couple years ago when people, when they went out, it was probably in the bubble, and they're like, "Oh, Tatum needs to do this, and Tatum needs to do that. They need to split him and Brown up." I'm like, or they're only like 21 years old. They can just learn to play together. Like that's an option. And sure
Yeah.
enough, that's what they did. And I'm very happy to see that. I'm honestly like my son's a Heat fan, so it's tough. I'm not rooting against either team. Like whichever
No.
team wins, I'm gonna be really
It's gonna be
happy
a good
for.
series.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and the growth of Tatum, and to see him become, like for the next decade, you guys got, an all-star player. You guys have to love Tatum. Like you just
Oh,
have to love
he
Tatum.
is love. I can tell you straight up, just I still listen to, the Boston sports media back home, all
Mhm.
my family, friends. Like I was raised in Boston, very deep connection still. They love Tatum. They love
Why would you
he's
not?
he is going to if you know anything about hockey, anyone
Mhm.
listening, I could very easily see him reaching Patrice Bergeron status almost if he sticks with
Oh
this
my.
team throughout his entire he just has that vibe about him.
I
Now,
agree.
obviously, Patrice is they're gonna make churches after him. That is Saint Patrice. So nobody will ever quite be on his level of
Yeah.
Tom Brady, Patrice Bergeron. But when you think of like Boston athletes,
Yeah.
Tatum's gonna probably find his way up
Could
to
take could
that Mount
okay.
Rushmore.
Could Tatum make Big Poppy level?
I think he could easily.
Okay, I
Easily.
think you would take that.
He's 23. He's already got the entire
Oh
city
my
loving him
goodness.
and the way his game has evolved as it is now. And if he just continues what he's doing, I could see him reaching that
Yeah, and
easily.
and and let me tell you, the Boston fans showed up, game 7.
Oh,
That
they were
place was
loud.
rocking. That place was rocking. It made it fun to watch on TV, so full credit, to Boston, the Boston sports fans, best of luck to them in the Eastern Conference Finals. Mash, I can't thank you enough for being on, man. This was a long time coming, and
Yes,
you were well worth the wait. Real quick, tell everybody where to find you, and your crew, and what you do.
absolutely. Yeah. So, man, I love talking sports. Love talking sports. My sports podcast is a bit of limbo at the moment just because of schedules and things like that. But anytime I can talk sports, I will always gladly do so if we can make it work. So I really appreciate. And again, this has been in the works forever. It was great.
Oh, it's taking
It's
a minute.
always such a fun time, man. It is always such a good time. Go ahead, go search hopsnews.beer. That is our website where you can find all of our articles, all of our links to our shows, merch, things like that. Or you can search Hops News on any podcast platform. We have a show that we go live on Thursdays where we strictly talk beer industry. And then Lauren and I, every week we have news, what we messed up on the previous week on our podcast, and what we're kind of reading and watching. And then we have a nerdy topic. We drink some beer. We just talk some pop culture pretty much. And that's also just as therapeutic. So check those out. And man, I can't wait to do this again.
No, it's the best, man. You're invited back anytime. And again, I support everything you guys do. I'm one of your biggest fans, not
Thank
only,
you. Thank you.
and I'm happy to have you on. Shout out to Jeremy and the guys at Hops News who have been a big advocate to me, along the way in my podcast journey. This was great. This was Off the Ball Networks, OTBN 365. Go check us out anywhere you can find us on social media. Click that YouTube button, the subscribe, share, and check out Jeff Needs Sports. For our daily stuff and our weekly stuff. And we thank you all for listening. We thank you all for watching, and have a